She used to come home with glitter still in her hair. It was always late, 1, 2 in the morning, sometimes later. I'd hear the key turn in the door and know exactly how the night had gone by the sound of her heels. If they clicked steady across the hardwood, it meant she'd danced. If they slipped off right away by the doormat, it meant she was exhausted, or tipsy. Or both. I never said much. I'd look up from the couch, nod, sometimes ask if she had fun. She always said the same thing, it was just the girls tonight. And I believed her. At least, I wanted to. Her name's Erica. We've been married 6 years. She's beautiful in that sharp, magnetic way, the kind of woman who turns heads without trying. High cheekbones, shoulder-length chestnut hair, always dressed like she belonged on the cover of Vanity Fair. Even when she went out just to unwind, she looked like she'd been styled by someone with a degree in it. I'm not the party type. Never was. I like quiet. Weeknights in. A well-made meal, a good book, maybe a late-night jog if the air is cool enough. Erica. She lives for the noise. For the kind of laughter that spills from rooftop bars and spills back into early brunch the next day. At first, I thought it was just balance. Yin and yang. I liked that she had her own orbit. Her girlfriends were tight, Jen, Mara, Cassidy, they had history. Group texts with inside jokes I'd never understand, photo threads from Vegas trips I wasn't part of. I didn't mind. I trusted her. We met in Chicago, just outside a bookstore on Lincoln Avenue. It was early spring. She dropped a coffee cup and it splattered across the sidewalk like a Rorschach test. I bent to help her. She said something sarcastic and charming, all at once, and before I knew it, we were laughing like we already knew each other. I think I fell for her right there. The first few years were good. Really good. We'd cook together, slow dance in the kitchen, binge old Seinfeld reruns under the same blanket. I'd run my thumb across her knuckles when she reached for a glass of wine. She'd trace my jawline when I was thinking too hard. We were a team. Or so I thought. The change came slowly. Like a shadow creeping in under the door. It started with more nights out. Girls' night this Thursday, again Saturday. A spontaneous birthday dinner for a friend I'd never met. Then there were weekends when she wouldn't come home until morning, claiming they'd all crashed at Jen's loft in Wicker Park after too many margaritas. And still, I trusted her. I wanted to. She'd always text. Sometimes. A selfie with a cocktail, a blurry photo of high heels under a table. Proof. I'd reply with, have fun. Be safe. Love you. Sometimes she'd respond. Sometimes she wouldn't. And that's when it began. The space between us. She used to lean into me in her sleep, tuck her legs into mine like she needed the warmth. But these days, she slept facing the wall. I'd wake before her, listen to the soft hum of her breath, wondering if that wall she faced at night was more than just a wall. I remember one night in particular. She came home, later than usual. I'd made dinner, seared salmon, roasted asparagus, a bottle of Pinot waiting. She walked in, still in her black cocktail dress, not even glancing at the table. Oh. You didn't have to cook, she said, shrugging off her coat. I told her I wanted to. She smiled faintly, kissed my cheek without touching the rest of me, and said she was too tired to eat. She smelled like bourbon and something I couldn't name, something musky, unfamiliar. Not perfume. Not hers, anyway. I watched her disappear down the hall, her heels in hand. The salmon sat untouched. That was the first time I didn't sleep. Not a wink. I lay there with the ceiling fan spinning above me, listening to the house settle. I told myself she was loyal. That I was being paranoid. That this was just a phase. People drift. People come back. Right? But something inside me was changing, too. A tension I couldn't name. Like I was holding my breath without realizing it. Back then, I didn't know what I was looking at. Not yet. I just knew the glitter in her hair didn't sparkle the way it used to. The mornings were the hardest. She'd wake late, moving slowly, sunglasses already in her hand before she even made it to the kitchen. I'd be there, dressed for work, coffee brewed, her favorite granola waiting on the counter. Small things. The kind of things you do without thinking when you love someone. But she didn't touch any of it. Instead, she'd mumble something about a headache or how dry the apartment felt and slip past me toward the shower. I'd hear the water running for a long time. Longer than necessary. There were no kisses in the morning anymore. No, have a good day. No, be safe. Just the sound of the faucet and the front door opening and closing. I started noticing little things. Her perfume had changed. Subtler now. Darker. It clung to her scarves even after she'd left the apartment. There were new dresses, still in their bags from Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's, tucked in the back of the closet. Receipts hidden in the trash. Once, I found a bar napkin in the pocket of her coat, from a place called Redline. I knew it. A new cocktail spot near West Loop. Loud, young crowd. Definitely not somewhere her girlfriends would usually go. She hadn't mentioned it. Not once. I sat on the edge of the bed with that napkin in my hand, staring at the lipstick print on the corner of it. Hers. A smudge of crimson. It hit me then, how much of her life I wasn't part of anymore. I tried asking, gently. Was it fun last night? She nodded, distracted, scrolling through her phone. Where'd you all go? She paused a beat too long. Oh, just that place on Clark. The one with the brick walls and the sangria you hate. But I knew that place. It didn't use bar napkins. And it didn't serve bourbon neat, the way she liked it now. I didn't press. Just nodded. Let it slide. Because that's what I did. I let things slide. I told myself I was imagining it. That this wasn't what it felt like. That love, real love, was stronger than doubt. But the truth? The truth was sinking in like cold water in the seams of a boat. She was slipping from me. And I didn't know how to stop it. One night I brought it up, finally. Not everything. Just the smallest thread, to see how she'd react. We were having takeout, sitting on the couch. Thai food. She used to eat it curled up next to me, stealing all the shrimp from my plate without asking. That night, she sat on the opposite end, legs crossed, phone in her lap. Erica, I said quietly, are we okay? She looked up, blinking. What do you mean? I don't know, I shrugged. You've been distracted lately. Distant. Just feels like you're somewhere else, even when you're home. She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me with those wide, unreadable eyes. Then she smiled, that polished kind of smile that looks real to a stranger, but not to someone who knows you inside out. I'm just stressed, she said. Work's been crazy. And I'm tired, Jack. That's all. Jack. That's me. The guy who makes coffee and books dinner reservations and washes the dishes even when it's her turn. The guy she married 5 years ago on a rainy April afternoon in Austin, beneath a sycamore tree. And I wanted to believe her. So badly. But stress doesn't explain disappearing phone calls. Or sudden inside jokes with people I'd never met. Or the smell of bourbon and aftershave that wasn't mine. Still, I nodded. Let it go. Again. Because sometimes it's easier to live in the lie than face what the truth could mean. That night, I heard her whispering in the bathroom. I was half asleep, but not enough to miss the soft click of the door closing behind her. The water didn't run. She wasn't brushing her teeth. Just her voice. Low. Careful. When she came back to bed, she curled away from me. And I lay there, staring at the ceiling in the dark, wondering who she'd been talking to. And whether he knew the sound of her laugh better than I did now. There's something surreal about watching the person you love become a stranger right in front of you. It doesn't happen in a single moment. It's not cinematic like the movies, no slow zoom, no dramatic music. It happens on a Wednesday night when she doesn't laugh at your joke. Or on a Sunday morning when she gets dressed up for brunch but never asks if you want to come. One night, I walked into the bedroom and saw her phone light up on the nightstand. She was brushing her teeth in the bathroom, humming something off-key. I wasn't trying to snoop, I swear I wasn't. But when the screen lit up again, and I saw the name, my heart did something strange. Zane. No last name. Just Zane. With a fire emoji next to it. I stared at it, not moving. Not breathing. Then I heard the water shut off, so I backed away like the phone had burned me. She came in a moment later, wiping her mouth with a hand towel, completely unaware. Slid her phone into her palm like she always did, muscle memory now, and turned the screen away before tapping it. I asked, casually, too casually, who's Zane? She blinked. Zane. I saw the name on your screen just now. Her face didn't flinch. Not even a twitch. Oh. He's a bartender. From this spot we've been going to. Jen knows him. That was it. Just that. A brush off, like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I know that now. Bartender. I should have asked more, but the air felt too heavy, and I didn't want to sound like a jealous husband. I told myself I was being paranoid again. That maybe I was just inventing things out of loneliness. So I dropped it. Let it hang there, unchallenged. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, I left work early. Told my team I had a stomach bug. I didn't. I drove straight to the bar she and her friends liked, the Rookery, off Damon Avenue. It was early. Just after 4:30. Not many people there yet. The bartender was setting up, wiping down the counter, straightening bottles. I watched him from the corner of the bar. Tall. Athletic. Tatted forearms. Confident, the way men are when they know they're being watched and they like it. He flirted effortlessly with a waitress who came to refill the garnish tray. Not a deep conversation, just enough to make her smile. And then I heard him laugh. Loud, full of swagger. I'd never heard that laugh before. But I recognized it. Because I'd heard her describe it. She once said, after a night out, there's this guy who laughs like a movie villain. Like he owns the room. She'd giggled when she said it. I remember thinking it was an oddly specific thing to remember about someone. Now I knew why. Zane. That was him. I didn't say a word. I didn't order a drink. I just sat there for 15 minutes, letting it all soak in. Watching the way he moved. How familiar he seemed with everyone. And then I left, unnoticed, blending back into the streetlight glow. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed more. Something real. Concrete. So I waited. And I started paying attention. That weekend, she went out again. Same excuse, the girls needed a break, some drinks, nothing crazy. I kissed her on the cheek. She barely returned it. After she left, I sat in the kitchen. Lights off. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and the soft click of the clock on the wall. An hour passed. Then another. Then I got in the car. Not to follow her, not exactly. I didn't even know where they'd gone. But something in me had snapped. I needed to see. Needed to be close to the places she disappeared to. So I drove by the Rookery. Slow. Headlights off. And there she was. Outside. Not with Jen. Not with Mara. Alone. Leaning against the brick wall near the side door, her phone in one hand, the other brushing her hair back from her face. She looked different. Lit from below by the glow of the cigarette she held between two fingers, even though she didn't smoke. Not when we met. Not for years. Then he walked out. Zane. He didn't touch her. Not then. But his body language said enough. They stood too close. He leaned in to say something, and she laughed, that easy, wide laugh she used to give me. The kind that made people turn and smile even if they didn't know what was funny. She looked alive. More alive than I'd seen her in months. I didn't stay. Didn't make a scene. I drove home, slow and quiet. When she came in at 2:08 a.m., I was already in bed, pretending to be asleep. She undressed in the dark. Slipped under the sheets like nothing had happened. But I could smell him. Not cologne. Not anything that obvious. Just the faint trace of bourbon, limes, and another life. There's a moment, right before a storm breaks, when the air feels electric. Still. Suspended. Like the world is holding its breath. That was me, for days. I walked around like I was underwater. Everything muffled. Time slowed. I still got up, went to work, nodded through meetings, answered emails like nothing was wrong. But inside? I was unraveling. She didn't know I'd seen them. Didn't know I sat in a car 2 blocks from the rookery, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Didn't know I watched her throw her head back laughing at something Zane said, her hair catching the streetlight like a halo. And that was what killed me. Not the fact that she was with someone else. But the lightness. The joy. Like I'd never even existed. I kept waiting for her to confess. Some guilty whisper at 2 a.m. A tearful apology over coffee. But it never came. Instead, she was kinder. Not warmer, just more polite. Like a colleague you drifted from. Did you sleep okay? Need anything from the store? Don't forget your lunch. She was treating me like a roommate. A placeholder. I started writing things down. Dates. Times. What she wore. Where she said she'd be. What time she came back. Who she claimed to be with. And then I started comparing it. I'd check Instagram stories, geotags, anything. Sometimes Jen would post from a different bar than the one Erica had mentioned. Other times, there'd be no trace of them together at all. One night, I opened her laptop after she fell asleep. I didn't want to. But I had to. She always said her passwords were the same, a combination of our wedding date and her old dog's name. I tried it. It worked. Most of what I found was normal. Work stuff. Shopping carts full of boots she hadn't bought yet. But then I checked her messages app. There were no texts from Zane. Not one. Which meant she had deleted them. That, right there, told me everything. You don't delete messages that mean nothing. You don't cover your tracks unless there's something to hide. The next day, I called in sick. I wasn't sick. But I needed to know. I parked across from the rookery again, this time during daylight. Watched as delivery trucks backed into the alley, bartenders came and went with crates of lemons and mixers. And then, around 2:30 p.m., he appeared. Zane. Wearing a black t-shirt, sleeves tight around his arms. He walked like he owned the block. I waited until he was alone on the sidewalk, lighting a cigarette, scrolling through his phone. And I got out. Zane. He looked up, half smiling like he expected a fan or a friend. Then his eyes narrowed. Yeah. I'm Erica's husband. Just like that. No build-up. No posturing. Just truth, cold and clean. His face didn't change right away. But I saw it, the flicker of recognition, the way he shifted his weight. He exhaled, a long slow breath through his nose. I figured this might happen, he said, voice low. She told you she was married? Eventually. I nodded. Stared at him for a long moment. Are you still seeing her? He shrugged. Look, man, I don't want drama. I didn't force anything. She came to me. You know how it is. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. That casual shrug. That total lack of remorse. You knew, I said, quieter now. And you didn't care. He didn't answer. I didn't hit him. Didn't yell. I just turned and walked away, my hands trembling. That night, I sat at the kitchen table for hours. No lights on. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the blinking cursor of a blank Word document on my laptop. I didn't know what I was trying to write. Maybe a letter. Maybe a timeline. Maybe something to make sense of the last 6 years. She came home around 11:30. I heard her heels in the hallway. Heard her set her keys in the bowl, her coat over the chair. She peeked into the kitchen and paused. You're up. I nodded. Didn't look at her. My hands were folded in front of me. The screen glowed between us. Everything okay? She asked. I looked at her then. For a long time. Where were you tonight? She blinked. Mara's birthday. You knew that. I nodded slowly. Did Zane come? She didn't flinch. Not even a breath. But the silence was heavy. And her mouth opened, then closed. That was all I needed. I stood, pushing back my chair. Walked past her without saying a word. Brushed against her shoulder, just barely. I heard her whisper my name, Jack. But I didn't turn around. I went to the bedroom, closed the door behind me, and sat on the edge of the bed with my hands in my lap. I didn't sleep. Not a single second. Because something inside me had finally broken. And I knew, tomorrow, everything would change. She was in the shower when I found it. Her purse had been tossed on the couch like it always was. Sloppy. Unthinking. Like someone who still believed the world owed them privacy. I didn't go looking for anything. Not at first. I just needed space, so I stepped into the living room. That's where I saw her phone buzzing against the fabric of the purse, glowing with a single message. Zane, last night was, damn. I can't stop thinking about it. And just like that, the room stopped breathing. The sound of the shower, the hum of the fridge, the faint tap of water on porcelain, it all faded into silence. I picked up the phone, my thumb hovering. I wasn't the kind of man who snoops. I wasn't. But she had already crossed that line. She'd erased trust. What was I trying to protect by staying blind? So I opened the thread. The texts were short. Flirty. Spaced out over weeks. But clear. Specific. Zane, you looked unbelievable in that red dress. Couldn't stop watching you from the bar. Erica, asterisk you were supposed to be working, remember? Winky face, asterisk. Zane, worth the distraction. A few photos. None scandalous. Just close-ups of her drink. Her lipstick-stained straw. A slice of lemon on the rim. The kind of photos you send when someone knows you intimately. Knows your mouth. Your laugh. There was one message, sent at 2:12 a.m. last Saturday. Zane, you don't have to go back to him. You know that, right? She hadn't responded. Or maybe she had, and deleted it. I set the phone down gently. Like it was something fragile. Like it wasn't a grenade that had just gone off in my chest. The shower turned off. I sat back in the armchair and waited. She came out wearing one of my old t-shirts, the one from our trip to Telluride, before all this. Hair wrapped in a towel. She looked tired. Peaceful. She didn't see the phone at first. Just me. Oh. I thought you were still asleep. I looked at her. Just looked. She followed my gaze to the purse. The phone. Her expression froze. And in that stillness, in the space between her last breath and her next, I saw it. The truth. No more pretending. No more half-lies. Just guilt. Heavy and silent. Her voice was barely a whisper. Jack. I held up my hand. I saw it. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Looked down. I wasn't going to lie to you, she said, eventually. Not tonight. But you were going to lie every night before this. That landed. Her shoulders dropped. I didn't plan it, she said. It just happened. We were out one night. I was drunk. He was kind. And I felt free. I don't know. Like I was someone else. I nodded. Slowly. Letting her speak. It wasn't supposed to be anything. It was just fun at first. Something separate. A way to feel wanted again. Was I not enough? I asked. She looked at me. Really looked at me. And I realized, maybe for the first time in a year, she actually saw me. It wasn't about you, she said. It was about me. How I felt when I was with him. Like I still mattered. I stood. Walked to the window. The city lights outside blinked softly, like they were trying not to intrude. When did it start? She hesitated. 2 months ago. Maybe a little longer. I did the math. Counted backward. It lined up with her extra meetings, her girls' weekends, her new perfume. Everything slid into place like puzzle pieces I'd refused to see. You deleted your texts. I had to. No, Erica. You chose to. That hit harder than I expected. Her chin dropped. She folded her arms, like she was trying to shield herself from something she'd built. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't throw anything. I just felt hollow. Like someone had scooped out my ribs and left my body standing on memory alone. I never stopped loving you, I said, quiet. She said nothing. I made coffee every morning. I folded your laundry. I listened to your work stories even when you stopped asking about mine. I stayed. And then, something cracked in her. I saw it in the way her mouth trembled. I know, she whispered. But it was too late. You don't get points for regret after the damage is done. You don't get to cry when you've already turned away. We stood there in silence, the two of us separated by more than just space. Something bigger. Irreversible. Finally, I said, you need to leave. She looked at me, stunned. Tonight? Yes. Tonight. Where would I go? I don't care. To Jen's. To Zane's. But you're not staying here. She took a step forward, then thought better of it. You're serious. I'm done, Erica. The moment felt still. Like the end of a movie, when the screen fades to black and all you hear is your own breath. She didn't beg. Didn't argue. She just nodded. Walked into the bedroom. Packed quietly. And when the door closed behind her, I exhaled for the first time in months. The first night without her, the apartment felt too quiet. Every sound was amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the kitchen clock, even the hum of the refrigerator seemed louder. Her scent still lingered on the pillows. Vanilla, sandalwood, and something else, something expensive. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the weight of what had happened settle into my bones. She was gone. Not gone like a vacation. Gone like something broken that couldn't be put back together. I could still hear the echo of her voice in my head, "It wasn't about you. It was about me." That line played on repeat. In the days that followed, I moved through the apartment like a visitor in someone else's life. Her toothbrush was still in the holder. Her coffee mug, the chipped one with the red tulips, still sat in the drying rack. I couldn't bring myself to throw any of it out. Not yet. Instead, I did small things. Things I could control. I cleaned the kitchen. Washed the sheets. Opened the windows even though it was cold. I trimmed the basil plant she used to overwater and let it sit in the sun. It was like reclaiming the space, inch by inch. I started going for longer runs. At first, just a couple miles, but then more, pushing my legs to the point of burning just so I could feel something besides the dull ache in my chest. I ran through Montrose Harbor, past couples walking dogs and families grilling hot dogs in the last of the fall sun. The cold wind off Lake Michigan stung my face, and for once, I didn't mind. That first weekend alone, I skipped breakfast. Couldn't eat. Just made black coffee and sat by the window, watching the city stretch and stir. I thought about all the mornings we used to spend at that table, sharing the crossword, splitting the Sunday Times, laughing about the obituaries and who wrote the most dramatic farewell. She used to underline the phrases she liked and read them out loud. And now, her chair sat empty. I didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later, unexpectedly, in line at Whole Foods, of all places. I was standing there with a basket of almonds, arugula, and oat milk, and suddenly I saw her favorite brand of granola. Maple cranberry. She used to eat it every morning with Greek yogurt and blueberries. Said it tasted like home. I stood there, staring at that box, and felt something catch in my throat. I had to step out of line. Went back to the car and just sat there gripping the steering wheel like it might hold me together. Grief doesn't come in waves. It comes in ambushes. But in between the hits, there was something else starting to flicker, a kind of clarity. One night, maybe a week after she left, I sat at my desk and opened a blank notebook. Not a laptop. Not a phone. Just pen and paper. I wrote one word across the top. Me. And then I made a list. It started simple. I like quiet mornings. I like cinnamon in my coffee. I like running without music. I like books with unhappy endings. Then it got deeper. I don't need someone to complete me. I want honesty, even when it hurts. I want laughter that doesn't feel rehearsed. I want to be chosen, not tolerated. The pen didn't stop for an hour. When I finally looked down, the page was full. And in that moment, for the first time since she left, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Steady. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was a start. I didn't hate her. Strange, right? I hated what she did, sure. I hated the deception. The way she looked at him like he was sunlight, while I sat in the dark. But I didn't hate her. I think part of me never will. We had real love once. We built something. It just cracked. And when it cracked, she stepped out of it and never looked back. But I did. I'm still here. And now it's my job to build something new, not with her, not for her, but for me. The apartment feels different now. Lighter. I moved her things into a box, not out of anger, but because I need to breathe. I opened Spotify and played music we never listened to together. I cooked dinner the way I used to before we met, simple, clean, quiet. Chicken, roasted sweet potatoes, a little rosemary. I ate alone, by candlelight. Not because I was lonely. but because I deserved something warm. Something real. And when I blew out the candle at the end of the meal, I felt the smoke curl around me like a soft exhale. This was the beginning. I started waking up early again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. There was something about the silence at 6 a.m. that steadied me, like the city hadn't yet decided who it needed me to be. The streets outside were still, the lights soft and silver. A man could breathe in that hour. A man could think. I stopped checking her social media. That was harder than it sounds. At first, I'd open the app without thinking, thumb hovering over her profile. Just to see. Just to know where she was, who she was with. But every photo, every story, felt like a wound she'd picked open with a smile. One day, I deleted the app altogether. That was the day I started writing again. Not in the notebook. In a real document. A blank screen, blinking cursor. No goal, no outline. Just words. I wrote about running. About silence. About how the smell of rosemary reminded me of something I never quite had. I wrote about how betrayal doesn't shout, it whispers. It sneaks in through the cracks when you're too tired to patch the walls. And little by little, those words stitched something back together in me. I joined a new gym. Switched from my usual spot to one a few blocks farther, closer to the lake. I started lifting heavier. Not to punish myself, but to feel strong again. There's something healing about sore muscles, about waking up with a dull ache in your back and knowing it came from growth, not grief. People noticed. The guy at the smoothie bar asked what I was training for. I didn't have an answer. But I smiled and said, myself. I also went to a bookstore for the first time in a year. That was our thing, once. Erica and I met in one. But this time, I went alone. I wandered the aisles without purpose. Picked up a novel with a torn cover. Sat in the back with a cup of black coffee and read until the sun moved across the hardwood floor. And for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Not fixed. Not healed. But becoming. Friends started calling more. People I hadn't spoken to in months. Maybe they'd heard. Maybe they just sensed something shifting. One night, my friend Nate invited me to a rooftop dinner with a few couples from his law firm. I almost said no. I didn't feel like being the lone, single guy at the table. But I went. And that night, under the soft hum of string lights and the smell of grilled steak, I laughed. For real. Not the half-laugh you give out of politeness. A real one. A from the chest, throw your head back kind of laugh. It caught me off guard. There was a woman there, Caroline. Dark curly hair. Sharp wit. She asked me what I did, and I didn't default to my job title. I told her I write. She asked what kind. And I said, the kind that helps me remember who I am. She smiled. Didn't ask more. Just nodded, like she understood. We didn't exchange numbers. That wasn't the point. The point was, I was still capable of connection. Of conversation. Of being. There was a day, not long after that, when I cleaned out the hall closet. That's where I found her old scarf, the navy one with the little gold flecks. She used to wear it in winter, tied tight around her neck, always complaining it wasn't warm enough but refusing to buy a new one. I held it in my hands for a while. Not crying. Not angry. Just grateful. Grateful for the love we shared. And grateful it ended. Because sometimes, when something dies, it frees the space for something new. I boxed it up. Took it, and a few other things, to the donation center on Belmont. The woman behind the counter smiled, said thank you, and handed me a receipt I didn't need. I walked out into the cold and pulled my own coat tighter around me. The sky was wide and gray, the kind of gray that makes you appreciate every scrap of warmth. And as I turned toward home, I realized something simple and beautiful. I was no longer surviving. I was living. It had been almost 3 months since she left when I got the message. A short text. No emojis. No punctuation. Can we talk? I stared at it for a while. The man I was 3 months ago would have answered in seconds. Maybe even begged for answers. But the man I'd become, he took his time. That night, we met at a coffee shop in Bucktown. Neutral ground. Familiar, but not sentimental. She looked different. Hair shorter. Less makeup. She was still beautiful, but in a quieter, more subdued way. Almost like the version of her I met on that spring day outside the bookstore. "Hey," she said. I nodded. "Hey." We sat across from each other. She ordered tea. I didn't order anything. I wasn't there for comfort. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she said after a beat. For everything. I let the silence sit. I was selfish. I knew what I was doing and I did it anyway. You didn't deserve that. Her voice cracked slightly. I didn't look away. You were good to me, Jack. Steady. Kind. And I threw it away for something that wasn't even real. I exhaled through my nose, slow and quiet. You didn't just throw us away, I said. You threw you away too. The woman I married, she would have fought for something better than a man pouring drinks on a Friday night. She looked down. Said nothing. You said it wasn't about me, I continued. And maybe that's true. But what you did? That was a choice. And it cost us everything. She nodded. I know. I stood. Took one last look at her. There was no anger left in me. No bitterness. Just space. I don't hate you, Erica, I said. But I'm done carrying you around in my chest. She opened her mouth, maybe to say thank you. But I didn't wait. I walked out into the cold air, zipped my jacket, and headed home. Not to grieve. To live. Spring arrived quietly. No sudden burst, no dramatic thaw. Just the slow return of birdsong in the morning and light stretching a little longer across the living room floor. I'd leave the window cracked now, just enough to let in the chill and the scent of new earth. The city was waking up, and so was I. The apartment had changed. Not in the furniture, but in the feel. It no longer carried the echo of what used to be. The air felt lighter. Still. Mine. I started painting again. Just small canvases at first. Nothing grand. Abstract shapes, mostly. Color combinations that made me feel something, deep blues, burnt orange, muted greens. I didn't show anyone. That wasn't the point. It wasn't about approval anymore. It was about presence. Process. The feel of brush on canvas, the sound of silence filled with purpose. And then there were the mornings. I'd wake up without the weight on my chest. Make coffee the way I like it, strong, black, cinnamon stirred in. Sit by the window with a notebook or a novel, feet tucked beneath me. Sometimes I'd write a line I liked and whisper it aloud, just to hear it in the room. I wasn't lonely. I was alone. And there's a difference. One morning, I ran into Caroline again, the woman from Nate's dinner months ago. It was at a bookstore downtown. She was holding a copy of The Bell Jar, flipping through the first few pages with the kind of focus you don't fake. We talked. Not long. But this time, I gave her my number. I didn't know what it would become. I still don't. But I remember walking away smiling. Not because she wanted me, but because I had something to offer again. Something real. I wasn't defined by what happened anymore. I wasn't waiting to be chosen. I had chosen myself. I look back sometimes. Not often. Not with longing. But with clarity. There are nights when the wind moves through the alley like a memory, soft and certain, and I remember what it felt like to lose someone you thought would always be there. Not with a scream, not with a slam of the door, but with a slow, cold fading. Like mist leaving the morning. Erica was a chapter. A long one. Full of color, conflict, and quiet damage. She taught me what love can be when it's new, and what it becomes when it's neglected. I don't regret the years we shared. I just know now that not everything meant to begin is meant to last. If there's a lesson in this, and I believe there is, it's this. Pay attention. To how they look at you when you speak. To whether they laugh from the throat or just the mouth. To how they say goodnight. The little things are the loudest if you're listening. And the moment someone begins to disappear isn't when they walk away, it's when they stop reaching for your hand across the table. And more than that, choose yourself. Not in a selfish way. Not in bitterness. But in truth. Build a life you can stand inside, even when no one's holding the other end of it. Know what brings you peace. Know what breaks you. And above all, know when to stay, and when to walk away with dignity intact. That's what I learned. Not from the affair. But from the aftermath. I became more than a man who was left. I became a man who stayed, with himself. So now, when I step outside in the early morning and feel the sun warming my face, I don't think of what I lost. I think of what I found. Me.